back, fight fans. We are here yet again for the Shootin' the Shit podcast here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, as well as Combat Press and every other platform that hosts this show. I am your host, Riley Kontek, here for the 41st installment of this show. We have another great guest today, but before we bring her on, let us thank our sponsor. If you're from the greater Illinois area looking to do home construction work, why don't you guys head to Facebook.com and go to Cornelius & Sons. As we say every week on the show, there's snow on the ground and it's almost negative degrees here in Illinois right now, so he's probably not going to work on your deck or your driveway right now, but anything, kitchen, flooring, bathroom, basement, anything you need, again, head to Facebook.com, Cornelius & Sons, and just as a reference, he has major pro athletes that he has done work for, including Dan Vitale of the NFL and Chris Chelios, the NHL legend. All right, with that out of the way, we introduce our guest for this week. She is a pro. She has competed at bantamweight, 135 pounds. I believe she's also can compete at other weight classes, but that was the most recent. We have Danielle Wynn on the show today. Danielle, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, couldn't be better. Great to have you with us today. Just for reference, just so we can clear that up, obviously you've competed at multiple weight classes. You've been an amateur and a pro. What is your preferred weight class?
My preferred is flyweight, but unfortunately there just hasn't been any, I guess.
Sure. So. Well, I mean, yeah, and honestly, that you would think that's the more crowded division, but that maybe just as you go up, I guess, the promotional level.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking too, because nobody wants to cut weight at this stage, it seems.
I don't blame them. I'm in Muay Thai, and I don't want to cut a single pound. I am 205 pounds exactly, and that's where I will fight at. So anyways, taking a look, there were some controversial comments made recently, on women's MMA by Stephen A. Smith of ESPN. I'm sure you've heard them. I know a lot of people have been talking about it on social media. So if you haven't heard, basically Stephen A. Smith says he would prefer not to watch women fight in the UFC or in the cage, just in general. So Danielle, what are your thoughts on Stephen A.'s comments as a whole? And then, just give us everything you think about it.
I have to say shame on him because he actually commentates on the sport. And it's like now if he ever commentates on a female MMA event, it's going to be like, oh, well, we know he really doesn't like it, and he's just kind of getting through it. So it's just it wouldn't have been so bad because you're entitled to your own opinion, but it wouldn't have been so bad if he just hadn't been, he does. This is it's his job to commentate on that, and he's already blasted out a somewhat negative opinion. So it's just like, shame on you.
Yeah, and I think he's wrong for a couple of reasons. I think he was kind of I wouldn't say misquoted, but taken out of context. I think he doesn't like watching women get beat up in the cage. I think that's kind of what he meant. But Stephen A. is kind of known for making outlandish comments and being very controversial. I think that's just his brand.
Yeah, and that's one. Like I said, he's entitled to his own opinion. He's entitled to say and do as he pleases for the most part. It could have been worded better if that was his intention. It could have been worded better.
Absolutely, and when you consider basically the consensus pick for the 2020 Fight of the Year was Weili Zhang and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, so it's really hard to say that women shouldn't be competing in the UFC. But like we said, he's known for making ridiculous comments, and I think this was just another instance of that. It might be controversial, but I mean, I love women's MMA. One of my favorite things to cover. One of the things I've covered for one of the longer times here. But I'll openly say I'm not a huge fan of watching women's pro wrestling as opposed to men's pro wrestling. But that has to do a lot with more of a, wrestling's more of a exact science of power, athleticism, explosiveness, timing, etc. In a choreographed sense, not in an actual combat sense. And I think that bigger, stronger people do that better, and just biologically they're built like that, and that's why men's wrestling is more exciting than women's wrestling. But I think when it comes to women's MMA, I don't see how you can dislike that because most women are usually competing for fight of the night. Even if it's not the most technical fight, it's always usually pretty entertaining.
That's true. And women's MMA isn't as far along as men's MMA, so I can see why it wouldn't be as technical or as wouldn't be as. Yeah, technically, but still, it's coming along, and it's obviously coming along nicely.
Right. I mean, some of the biggest stars of the last 5 years or so have been women. Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So, I mean, it's really hard to say that they don't belong on the stage.
She's making her way up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, transitioning more to you now because this is your spotlight today. Before we talk about your actual pro career, let's talk about how did you get into MMA and about what year did you get into MMA?
I started around 2017, 2016, and I got into it for workout purposes because I wanted to stay in shape. Actually, I started with boxing, and then I got into MMA, but I just did it just to stay in shape. And my trainer was like, "You hit really hard," and I was like, "Oh, cool." And I thought about doing some boxing, but it just never came to fruition. And then I saw an MMA gym, and I was just hooked. Like, just their style of doing things, the training. I actually enjoyed training for the most part. I mean, sometimes it's rough, but it's good rough. So, yeah, back since.
Awesome. It seems like that's how a lot of people get into it. They just were trying it to stay in shape. I know a lot of NFL players have said. I mean, Greg Hardy, I think, basically was doing it in the off season, and then he just got good at it, and then he made it his next career after the NFL. But yeah, it's amazing how many people just get into it just to. I was just trying to get in shape, and then all of a sudden, I was good at it. Khalil Roundtree is another one that comes to my head on that one actually too. So you had a pretty extensive amateur career. You turned pro in your last fight. You performed for Icon Fighting Federation, which is a pretty on the rise promotion. They're on UFC Fight Pass. They get good promotion there. You took on Bella Mir. Obviously you didn't win that fight, but it was a lot. It was very competitive. She had most of the spotlight on her based on her last name. So can you comment on that performance? What you think you did well, and what you think you could improve going forward?
I definitely wish I would have had more time to train for the fight because I took it on short notice. I found out, I think, like 20-something days, 28 days before the fight, and I wish I would have had my cardio up. That was the only thing, but taking nothing away from her. She's a great wrestler. She definitely wrestled me, took me down, did her thing. Yeah, I just wish I just had more time. That's why I did cardio like crazy. All the time.
That's the thing that most fighters say, especially when they're taking late notice, is that, man, I wish my cardio, was better, or they'll say, God, I'm so happy my cardio was good because of the late notice. I think that was during the COVID-19 thing when guys and girls weren't able to get into the gym, the one thing they were able to do was cardio. So there's a lot of, I was saying to my one fighter friend, I said, there's really no excuse to not have, not you per se, but in general, just no excuse to not have cardio if you're taking a late notice fight at the high level like a UFC or a Bellator.
That's true. That is true. Especially if you're just training, that's all you're doing. I mean, there is no reason you shouldn't be.
But then again, I hate cardio, so running and all that stuff not exactly my cup of tea.
It's the hardest to do by yourself, or the hardest to get yourself to do, because nobody wants to get out of their bed at 5 a.m. and run. Start.
Yeah, that's why I call bullshit on all those Rocky movies. Like he was really waking up at 5 and running the whole city.
Yeah, no way.
He's a fraud. He wasn't doing that. He was taking roids and shit. So, with Bella Mir fight in the rear view, you have a fight upcoming for SHP. It's a local regional promotion in the South. I believe is the fight in Mississippi.
It was in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Tennessee, okay, yeah, I know they're usually in the southeast there. Your opponent's gonna be Brigid Chase. So why don't you comment on? We'll make this a multi-part question. How's your training been going? How do you see Brigid Chase as an opponent? And then what do you foresee in this fight?
Basically, I've been training. I just upped my training a little bit. I picked my training partners carefully, train a little harder, do more than I would normally do just to stay in shape or just to stay up. And as far as Brigid goes, I expect her to stay standing for the most part. She seems like she wants to be a stand-up fighter, and that's fine with me. But it's also fine if she wants to go to the ground, because I've been working on that too ever since. So I don't know. I totally see it as I see this, like I said, being a banger. Just being, I think we'll both get hit, and it'll make us want to go even harder.
Absolutely. Would you prefer to strike with her, or do you want to try your ground game out with her as well?
I'm a striker by nature. I prefer to strike with no matter who you are. So it's just my nature.
Well, I think that's why the fans are going to like you. I think, everyone likes MMA, but everyone likes watching 4-ounce glove kickboxing. So
yeah.
I think that's honestly the big attraction about one championship is that with the Muay Thai and kickboxing fights, a lot of them are with MMA gloves, and that's honestly better and more attractive to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I prefer that way as well. If I could have done, because I did 3 time matches as an amateur. If I known I could have gone that way, I would have taken some of those fights too. I still wouldn't mind taking a fight like that either, because I do plan on taking some boxing fights as well, just to kind of get out there and get more, because it's so hard for women.
Yeah, it's tough. There's not as many opponents. There's just not as many high-quality people at the lower levels or the regional levels to build yourself up to that higher level to, which actually bleeds in nicely to our next question. Have you had any talks with Invicta? They are the big women's promotion outside of the UFC and Bellator.
I haven't had any talks with them or anything. I've like tweeted out to Shanna and been like, hey, I wouldn't mind fighting 125, because I know they have some 125ers. That's the big thing too. They actually have 125ers, and obviously, with my luck, I'm not finding any 120 flyweights. But 135 is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a spot for you, especially with a win over Brigid Chase, who, is a name that is recognizable to regional MMA fans. I mean, she's fought in, some of the bigger regional promotions. So I don't see why that's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. The only thing is I haven't heard of any cards. I know they were supposed to have a card in February. Hasn't been announced. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen anymore. So, hopefully they can get in gear and start getting shows running so that, they're very good about letting prospects like yourself and other young fighters or, fighters with not a lot of experience, get put on their cards, especially on the opening couple of matches.
Yeah, but I've heard that too, that nobody knows what's happening with them and what's going on. But we'll see. In the future will tell, especially with the COVID and the way venues are closing left and right.
Yeah, but it does seem like it is starting to open up a little bit more. Ironically, it seems like a lot of the stuff is starting to open up a little bit more. If you watch the NFL, or it looked like they were starting to do small occupation of fans. For instance, I was watching the Packers Buccaneers game, whatever that was, last week or 2 weeks ago. And, they had maybe 33, like a third full of the stadium. So it does seem like stadiums are more operational at this point.
Yeah, that's great. I hope everything goes back to the way it was, pre-2020. Great.
I think that's how everybody feels right now, because it was really weird. The last thing we'll mention before we go to talk about UFC 258, watching UFC 257, Conor, at least there was some audience there, but it wasn't like the sellout, arenas that he used to do. It was very weird. It
was very weird. And MMA with no crowd, you can hear everything. You can hear them talk to each other. You just hear every little thing, which is cool in a way, but the fans bring so much electricity to the building and energy, and there's just nothing like it.
100%. Every fight, like during the COVID shutdown, basically felt like, it sounded like an Ultimate Fighter or a Contender Series fight, because those are the only two times you can really just hear the corners,
Yep, it did. That's very true. I didn't think about that, but yeah, it did sound like that.
Yeah, the Contender Series with Conor McGregor. No, I'm kidding. So let's take a look at UFC 258. This is per tradition. We will look at the card for the upcoming weekend here. So this is going to be at the UFC Apex. It'll be February 13th, so Saturday. If you look at it, maybe not the strongest pay-per-view offering. The co-main event is Macy Barber, Alexa Grasso, which is a perfectly fine fight, but for a pay-per-view co-main event, kind of hard to justify that. But the fight we will touch on, and we'll get your thoughts on it, is the main event, the welterweight championship of the world. Former teammates, which kind of makes it interesting. You got the welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman, taking on Gilbert Burns, the challenger. So why don't you give us your thought on this matchup? If you got a breakdown, excellent. And if you got a prediction, throw it our way.
So I feel like everybody throws hate on Kamaru Usman, and I feel like that just truly motivates him. He just gets more and more fueled by the hate that he gets. But Gilbert, he's nothing to be slept on either. But I kind of do feel like that Kamaru Usman will probably keep the championship, and it'll go as maybe 3 rounds, maybe.
And you think Usman wins?
Yeah, I think he wins by strikes. Maybe not complete knockout, but by strikes.
Yeah, TKO, referee stoppage, something like that.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the underrated thing coming into this fight is I think a lot of people don't realize how good Gilbert Burns' striking has gotten, because he used to be just that BJJ black belt guy, but I mean he in recent times has looked really good with his hands. I mean, he dominated Tyron Woodley, knockout of Damian Maia. So I mean, he's not to be slept on. Not to say that he's better or worse than Usman, but he's definitely. I think people are sleeping on his hands.
No, I agree. I think they are as well. I think most people just if you don't have that star power, they just know you for that one thing that you used to do all the time, and they never really think about anything else. If you don't have that, that Conor draw power or the Ronda draw power, people don't remember as much. But you're right. He could definitely outbox Kamara as well. But I can't wait to watch it. I just think it's gonna be fireworks, and I think it's gonna be a good way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really good fight. I wish the card was a little bit stronger. I will still watch it, but for a pay-per-view, you got to have at least 2 or 3 like pay-per-view quality fights. I think they have 2 maybe. I mean, some of these are just okay, but I'll still watch. I agree with your breakdown. I think that it's going to be interesting on the feet. I do think Kamaru has better striking. I think he proved that against Colby Covington. Yeah. Colby got him a few times, but obviously he's got the power advantage. He's just such a physical specimen. And he's got the wrestling in his back pocket, and he doesn't necessarily have to take Burns down, other than he can just clinch and grind him up against the cage and wear him out.
Right, and then beat him up the strikes after you wear him out.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That could be a good MO for him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's afraid of, if he doesn't want to bring Burns down because Burns is good off of his back, he can clearly just grind on him, hold him down, and then once he gets tired, then go in the striking, because, I mean, Usman does have pretty good cardio for a guy with the amount of muscle mass he has. You think of the big muscly guys as not the most cardio-driven.
That's very true. You think of the lumbering around and getting tired and all the oxygen usage from the muscles.
Oh, yeah. Call that Todd Duffy syndrome.
Oh, that's good.
I'm sorry, I just miss him. I haven't seen him in a while, so... all right, well, awesome, Danielle. Thank you very much. This is the time on the show where, as I always say, I let you whore yourself out. Where can we find you? Was there anybody you'd like to thank? And, the floor is yours.
Yes, definitely. My Instagram is Danielle_Wynn_fighter. My Twitter is the same, Danielle Wynn Fighter. And, of course, my Facebook is Danielle Wynn. And then I have an MMA page, Danielle Wynn MMA. That's super repetitive. I have a list of people I like to thank. Definitely like my training partners. One second. And my coaches for sure. But I definitely have like a little list here.
Oh, take your time.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, you're all good.
Where'd it go? Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so I definitely want to thank FSC and J General. And then I want to mention Joe Ginsberg of Smoking Photos, Roger Midleridge, Robert Davis for his design. And definitely I want to go back and thank my training partners and my coaches once more because, of course, they make it more possible.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. I will whore myself out now. You can find all of my work on Combat Press, where this show is also posted. My website, MMA Intel, where we have new scouting reports every week, including UFC rankings as well, prospect rankings, the whole shebang. Head there. This show is also on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. It's on a bunch of different platforms. And again, guys, I post the show to Facebook, Twitter, and all those sites as well. So, Danielle, thank you very much again for coming on the show, and we really look forward to watching your upcoming fight with Brigid Chase. What is the date on that fight again?
It's on March 6th.
March 6th. Awesome. And is there a platform that's carrying that?
I don't have the pay-per-view link yet.
Okay.
But I'm definitely going to post it a bunch.
Absolutely. So, guys, if you heard her social media earlier, head there in the next couple weeks. She'll post the where the pay-per-view is going to be shown. Definitely check it out and support these regional MMA promotions, especially after a tough year for everybody, especially at the lower levels. So, the non-UFCs and Bellators, they all need your support right now. So, again, Danielle, thank you for coming on. So, for Danielle Wynn, I'm Riley Kontek saying continue watching the fights, continue watching the show, and go fuck yourselves. Good night.